Oh, yeah, look at this.
I don't know, I just sent the text asking if he was going to rejoin us remotely. Sure.
Just light reading.
Hey, Rob, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you okay.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Well, it is 13. I'd like to call the Albany County work session of April 19th to order. And Commissioner Adair.
Oh, here, yes, sorry.
Commissioner Richardson is not here, and Commissioner Gosar is here. Guess we'll stand for a pledge of allegiance and then we'll head right into this. How about that? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you guys for being here. And thanks for the work previously, Peggy, on the general procedures for the alteration or vacation of county roads. I guess we'll just hand it over to you. This has kind of been one of those things that seems to be a pretty different, even though the subject matter is the same, when it's a county road in the Hayfield, it's a much different thing than in Centennial, which is where we seem to have some of the discussions that are the toughest to solve. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to let the commissioners be aware, you are in possession of a document which was prepared about a year and a half ago, essentially going through all of the state statutes, because the process of vacating a right-of-way is very statutorily driven in the process. At this point, I did, at the time when I went through this, and I did give citations at the bottom, kind of laying this out in just a general, like who can file and how does it initiate the process. And this is just simply an outline of the state statutes. As you'll note, it's not written like the regulations that we would see from David with planning and subdivision and how it talks through the process and how you do it in layman language. It does lay it out just to give you the law. So what I'd like to do today is kind of find out what you want to see, kind of walk this through. I'm amenable to drafting a policy regulation and having David review it and trying to write it in layman's terms. And I know David does it very well, but I'm sure I have confidence that David could review whatever I write and kind of put it in more of a understanding for the public, if need be, and addressing any holes I may overlook in the process. And I guess I'd like to start out, we do not have a home for this right away type of process. When I say that, I mean, we do not have a department that's assigned to it. It's kind of by default. It's just been filed with Jackie's office as the clerk's office, default to GIS to act as the viewer, and default for my office to provide that oversight. So we have two elected officials and one department working it. It hasn't really traditionally, although we brought David involved in this process, it's just been us elected officials and the Department of GIS. So at this point, I guess I'd like to talk to you what you want and how to formalize this process. We do have forms that I drafted of a sample petition, sample everything that's driven. That I know that we've been directing it through the GIS department, and then they would provide that packet. And that's what we did this last go around. The packet along with these were provided to applicants. But I guess I just want to know what your thoughts are, where you would like to have it housed.
Commissioner Barrett, yeah, ideas?
I just have a question to just to, I don't know. So is it through state statute that the petition has to be filed in the county clerk's office?
Yes. And that's unusual because on our other processes, it's through our planning department. So this is a function of the county clerk, just like we have special districts that go through the county clerk. This is one that starts in the county clerk's office. However, as you well know, it's very outside, other than being the filing of where you file to start the process. It's not within the county clerk to review it, compliance, doing all of those items are not there. It's odd.
Anything else? So I guess I'll just, it seems since I've been here that it seems to make sense to put it with GIS because they are going to do a lot of the background information for us. So they file it with the clerk's office. But then in the past, you've had GIS go take a look at survey, get the research done. And
GIS is the viewer.
that GIS in the viewer. Yeah. David, do you have any thoughts on that, or does that process work with regard to what you see of it, or is there a different way you can think about this?
The unfortunate thing is the process is kind of outlined by state statutes. I don't think the process is extremely clear or clean. But yeah, I mean, a lot of what Alan did was more of the background research and you know, because he had all of the information about all the roads. And then he did have the GIS ability to put those maps together. So, I mean, I think that's probably an appropriate place for it. You know, I would be happy to help through the, you know, whoever ends up being the GIS person through that process. I mean, I kind of understand it. I mean, Peggy understands it, Jennifer understands it. And I think we could all be a team to help with that. But really what we're looking for is someone just to guide them through the process, dig up the information about these properties, and then get it to you guys so that you can do what you want to do. I don't think it's extremely difficult. I mean, it looks really complicated and unclean, but I don't know. Kind of wish we had a little more authority over this to kind of write our own deal, but the way it is, I think I'd be fine with that. I really don't want to have a whole lot more to do in my office right now. But you know, that's up to you guys, and we'll do whatever we need to do. But that's my thoughts.
Yeah, thanks. Rob, do you have a thought about this at all? And where it might make sense since you're in charge of most?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, since I've been in this position, I think we've only dealt with the once when we got rid of some property that was out on Fetterman Road. I was looking back in our history, and there's since 2008, there is basically we gave the city Adams Street and Vista Drive would be some examples that you could look at as quick claim deeds to the city. Like say, other than that, I mean, everything was going through the GIS department, so it really wasn't involved too much with it unless it involved the road, and that was just basically, are you interested in vacating it? So
has that process been all right with you, Rob? Is there something that would be a better process that you?
No, I thought the process has worked out well. I mean, basically, GIS was the one that was putting together the descriptions and through, I assume with Peggy's or the attorney's office, the resolutions and stuff.
Okay. So I guess GIS isn't here. What do you think, Sue? I mean, it seems to make sense, right?
Totally. If they were doing it before, it didn't seem like there was any. I think obviously Jack is also and Peggy's office, you know, to be all this. But I like the fact that it's sort of the effort to do all this legal.
Rob, I just have a quick question. Where does the historical record about roads, where does that live? Does that live with the clerk's office? Does that live with you? Where does that information live?
I'm pretty sure it's at the clerk's office. I mean, we have stuff here, but I don't know if it's the originals.
Okay.
And then a lot of that was back in 2000, I believe 2006 to 2010. They scanned all the material we had here, and it should be on electronic files and a lot of that stuff that Alan had.
Thank you, Rob. Jackie, any thoughts about this? Is it working as well the way it was working before?
It has been. communicated very well and
Okay.
worked together as a team to put it together. Most of the work falls on Peggy to be realized after it's been reviewed and now we get years of the process, but as far as creating the document for your consideration.
Does that help? Just
Mhm.
to continue that?
Yes, so what we will do is in the regulation, if an person is an individual interesting to vacate a right of way, we will, they will need to get in contact with GIS department where they will provide them a packet of information. We can put that all in the regulation, kind of walking a citizen through the process and how that GIS person can work with them in the petition and what is expected under the state statute and helping them.
So that would be their initial step is to contact GIS.
Correct,
They don't come. That's before they file a petition.
correct, because a lot of them, for instance, they want to get rid of the alleyway for one reason or another. And so they need to go, well, how do I start this process? So we will have regulations promulgated and it will direct the citizen to GIS for a packet of information. Not uncommon what you see in the city. Does the same thing, you know, how you go through the process. We can even put together, and I think I already do have a flow chart already developed. So they know how do you work your way through this process.
Will that cause problems with the GIS being a disinterested party? Starts with them and then-
Right. Well, they're gonna have to be our viewer anyway
Okay.
to tell us and if you look on page 2 of this handout, these protocols, the viewer has a report that they have to put together. So what it's doing is it's letting the citizen be aware, this is what we're gonna look at. So the citizen is able to have a better understanding. I do know that there were several people who have come forward to Alan, that he was able to say, look, this isn't going to happen because of X, Y, Z. So they didn't waste their time or devote much time to put forward a petition when we knew that that was not going to be even, you know, it's your decision, but that it would be a problem to put it together. And I know that your past applicant that just went through Alan, and then they contacted me just for some specifics. So there was all of that process being explained so that they understood. But I don't believe it'll compromise.
Okay, you think the process works all right for your office?
Yes, it's been, this helped us, this protocol and the forms have helped us tremendously to streamline it. Prior, we didn't have this. That's why, you know, it was important to lay it all out. We have templates now, and I think that there just needs to be, we need to know where do they start, you know, the process. And then they take the petition, they file it with the county clerk's office, it goes on the agenda. I think we need to outline that it goes on the agenda of the commissioners, and just a brain dump, if you will, of what we're doing right now, so that the community person, the citizen knows this is what's entailed.
So should this document have initially filed that we contact GIS?
Yes. And then as I walk through this, I kind of did in a way, the way I worded this, because that's the way I think in that line, what are the questions? We just need to fill this in to be more detailed, that the citizen knows where's the next process and how long does it take? And it could take a lot, because I don't think people understand, if you're not in agreement, we've got to go back and there could be many more options, and that's the key, options. So I think putting that to the citizens so they have an idea from a time frame, how long it takes, that was a complaint I think that most have. They expected to fill out this petition, put it on, and boom, it's done, you know, after the comment period. And I think we need to be realists of how, you know, what this process entails in writing.
I agree. And I think what isn't understood, at least in the short time I've been here. This is what is the best interest of the public,
Mhm.
not what is in the best interest of the petition.
Right.
It might be the same, but it might not. So, okay,
And that needs to be spelled out at the beginning when we say the purpose, so that they understand that.
yeah.
So I can do something to codify that to make sure they understand. So then we need to, I think you did some really good things that came out of this past right away, vacate. Some legislation that's being considered, I think it's under planning right now, about revising that when we do a subdivision or something in Centennial, that there are surveys and there are exceptions. I think we put forward an exception, because I think you need to have an exception when you don't need to do a survey. For instance, if there's been a survey or if it's clear. I think there was discussion. I think that's making its way through the commissioners. So I think this issues that we saw before is the pins and knowing where, so we avoid this in the future, people building in the right of way. So you're attacking the issue from two sides. One, the process, but also to avoid this happening again. So those that are already in the alleyway versus those coming into the alleyway. And I really appreciate that. I think that's a good approach to clean this up for the future. I don't know where that is in the process.
So we'll bring it to this board.
And the planning commission was fine with that.
Yeah.
So I think that was a great approach to hit this from that angle. So the next step in this process would be what happens when we have a partial vacate of a right of way that benefits the applicant only. Okay, so you're looking at what's in the best interest of the public, but how do we move forward with the person who wants to just take that land? And state statute says down here in our state statutes, when we get to the point that we realize it is complete, the viewer's report, we've determined it's in the public interest to do this, the question becomes, the land is supposed to be divided in half and given to each person. So we need to address when there's a partial vacate and it benefits the applicant only, not going dividing it. Is there a fee that will be associated with that, and how do we calculate that fee or cost? And I don't view that as damages. Damages is a separate issue we get into later, meaning by you giving them that land or that right of way, I'm damaged because I can't get access to my property. That's damage. But we probably wouldn't be vacating if it's going to affect another landowner's access, and there's a lot of host of other issues. So the damage portion you don't see as much, but this is a fee that's affiliated with when you do it, and where does this fee go? You know, is it earmarked? How do we determine? I will tell you that other communities are looking to what we're doing because they do run into this issue. I believe the state statute does allow, but you need it in a regulation. And if, you know, they want to move forward with this, then, you know, that's not uncommon, but how do you determine that? So those are issues I need direction from you, if that's the direction you want to go in charging the fee.
And that was the situation.
Right.
With only one side.
Mhm.
And
Correct. And that's what happened with McShane property as well, I believe. And I don't think any other landowner got that land, did they? Nope, it's just all McShane. So that's the similar issue. Now, are we at our, you know, that we won't see this again? I don't know. I can just tell you those were the two that are, when you drive through Centennial, were the most noticeable. There's still another one out there that may come back. But right now, that is the issue. We didn't even know about it.
I was gonna say, I got that.
Yeah, we all received the email and we were never notified, at least I wasn't, that someone else filed. So that person we would direct to our GIS department and then they would be logged in as a project. So we didn't even know about that. Oh, we have been? So then what happened to it? Just sat there? Does he have a report? Well, you can't do the resolution without the
Well, the
report.
resolution was initiated, and then.
Oh. Yeah.
You're fine.
And also,
Pre-trial detention order, because we aren't seeing them yet and it's gonna expire and then they'll have to be released from jail.
And so the resolution would just
It should
begin
be
the
in here.
process.
Like,
so the resolution was just to initiate.
and there was an order with it.
Well, let me see if I can find those.
It's over on the table.
Oh, okay.
And then where's the summons?
The summonses are. I never saw it before.
So we're just missing the order. It's on the table. Okay, and is this the new one? I pulled the one that you had up on your computer.
Okay.
Yeah, I printed it too. I don't know where, I had it on the table. So the order I needed, the order for pre-trial detention is still in. Okay, thank you. I apologize.
No worries.
So with that said, we have one in the queue. We need to do a better job at tracking that so that we're meeting our deadlines and moving forward. At this point, when you have the viewer's report, I don't believe there is a deadline.
It sounds like there's not a viewing report on this one.
Yeah, and until that viewer's report is, there, it doesn't start the process. So we need to make sure we're putting a deadline on that in our regulation so that the applicant is aware it doesn't just languish, like no pun intended. In the name language. Sorry. Language so that they know that it's going through the process.
Yeah.
So I'll put that in there, a timeline.
But I guess getting back to the fee, seemed fairly fair the way it was thought about in the last petition, but it seemed like there was some legal issues with regard. Now, I don't know if there were legal issues or just people throwing about legal threats with the assessor's office doing it. So I don't know if you have a thought on that. Right?
Yeah, there was a misconception that we were having our assessor give a market value. We weren't. What we were taking is the tax value. So we just need to lay out what we're doing. Grant's office can't assess it, appraise it. It would just be, we're using that tax value. And this is the time where I'm cautious because let's say in the future, we want to purchase a road easement or something down the line, this amount is going to come right back at us as a county for consistency. And Rob will attest to Newborn Road and different easements. We've been very aware of that and ensuring that we're not overinflating and keeping it reasonable because we don't want per rod to come back with us being charged either. So, I mean, I don't know if Rob has an opinion on that because he knows, the cost.
Rob, please.
It costs on the, the cost of purchasing the easement or what?
Yes, we went through that process and the concern that we had in future road easements.
Okay. On Meebor, for example, we had the cost of a landman that came in, basically negotiated the process, which really helped in that situation. Sometimes it may not be needed, but in that case, it really was. Also, there would be a cost of getting it surveyed. Who pays for the survey will be, I guess, negotiated or whatever. And then our time involved, it's probably another thing. You can figure the time it takes to all the paperwork and things like that.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if Rob, how we calculated the rod, the price per rod. Wasn't there a price associated on this one?
You mean for the landman?
No, for the actual road. Did we pay a fee?
No, I don't believe there was. The only fee that we had on that one was for the landman.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, we did have a fee. It was an in-kind fee. Basically, we've supplied right-of-way fence for that right-of-way on Meebor.
Well, but we have to be aware of that fee because I think that could come back in the future for us when we negotiate purchase. This one on Meebor, we did in kind. We did a lot behind the scenes in negotiating, but there may come a point, looking in the crystal ball, that we're going to need easements for certain lands.
Right.
Yeah, right, Rob?
Yeah, that's correct. As we've talked about before, there's quite a few places that we may have papers that designated it an easement or a deed, but nothing was ever followed through or signed. So there's no signed documentation that the county road or the county has a deed on portions of the roads. Fetterman's a good example. It's, and I think Jennifer and Peggy both have looked at it. They've seen that map that Alan has. There's quite a few segments in there that the county really has no deed or easement through.
So that's something in the future we need to be cognizant of as we press forward with this portion of determining fee. Just to make you aware, you have coming on your agenda coming up, the Ken Nelson matter, which was resolved, which you'll be happy how that got, resolved with road easements and how we did that. So, I mean, it's just something, I think as a team, we've all sit around and talk about ideas of how we can effectuate what was the end goal without spending money. But when we do this, we have to be careful of how that will come back at a later date when we have to spend money. So the way that we determined was using the tax rate, which I still think is high. That's it.
I guess for me, Commissioner Vera, you can thoughts on it. Let's say we have 5 centennial 5 easements, and then we have 50 on our county roads. Doesn't make much sense for us to do anything to charge it centennial if it's going to come back to us. And then my second thought is, will that matter at all? Right? Will somebody who just wants us to buy an easement on a county road, doesn't matter what we do in centennial, they're just going to charge us for an easement. So, yeah, thoughts on
I don't know about experience, that's in this working, but I think it's very wise to whatever you consider that, whatever you decide here, in just have to actually.
Yeah. Right.
So, I mean, I don't know if staff has any suggestion for you on that. I just know that, Alan Frank was concerned about that. He expressed it, and I received it too, although I didn't verbalize it. Let me explore other jurisdictions, how they've calculated it, and bring back some options. Because other states do this in state statute and other items. So let me see how they're calculating that in other communities outside of Wyoming.
And we do have that for state statute, that flexibility, that power to charge it.
It is my legal interpretation of the state statute that you do have the authority to charge it, but you've got to have it in a regulation. as you heard the opposing side, they did not feel you had the legal authority. We were all saying the same thing. I believe you do have the ability to promulgate regulations based on what's in the interest of the public in order to effectuate a fee in those unique situations. I think legal counsel didn't disagree on it, but he was saying it's nowhere right now. And so he didn't say no, but you need to have something in a regulation.
Well, thank you, because I did a little bit, but just in like City, Seattle, and some of the places that they do charge fees.
Right.
And it's a fee before you even start the process.
Yeah.
But of course, we're dealing with more density and spaces and premium. So that's different. That happens. Right.
So that brings us back to costs as we get into fees. Rob mentioned survey fee. We need to make sure that that cost is articulated in our regulations, that the applicant is responsible for that.
And this 250 deposits, does that normally cover everything as far as the advertising and notices? From that and that much. It depends on how many landowners you're affected. 13, 51 per registered mail. You have to send to every landowner. So if there's only 3 landowners that are affected, if there's 10, it's going to affect the cost. But the advertising costs is about $50 per time you have to twice. So like the last one would be 30.
And that's the boomerang cost?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know you could get through the door under 100.
Yep. It's 50 or it's
Okay.
small. I mean, it's just a no.
Okay. Okay. But we need to charge back the survey fee. There's also, do we have a fee for the GIS to review or engineer if need be? You see, these are costs do we want to start recouping?
Right.
I mean, I know that this is in-house, but is there a way that we charge a fee for their time?
I don't know why you wouldn't, right? Because every time somebody comes to access to the land maps.
Oh, so we can't, Jen just brought out 24,3107. We can charge a fee for the viewer. Now, usually those are out contracted outside, but I think we could still charge that. So, average time, I'm just guessing that Alan invested. Some of these, like what you saw recently, was a lot. I'd say a minimum of 5 to 10 hours is what he's investing in his time. And I'm just guessing. That doesn't include legal and what we do, but I think you're talking at a minimum 10 hours. And I think if it's less, it can be refunded.
So we're talking at this point that the survey, the GIS, and the viewer will all be petitioners.
Correct.
Along with the 250.
Correct. And so this application may be upward of anywhere 750 to 1,000. When at the end of the day, or at least.
Yeah. David, you had a thought?
Well, I don't know if I'm completely comfortable with like the selling part of the land or whatever, but I mean, you guys are saying that's okay. But I do like, I think this fee thing is kind of the way to go. If we're looking at a subdivision and we're looking at a number of different lots, you probably could charge a fee per lot that's going to affect or something like that. And there's a lot that goes into this. I mean, not just the GIS person, but you guys are going to be reviewing legal documents and some of these other things. I think really that would be the way to go, is just charge an upfront fee saying this is going to be a couple $1,000s to go through this whole process, And I think that's fair and reasonable. And yeah, I kind of like that idea, because I've never been really keen on the whole, because it's public land right here, and now we're going to sell it to somebody. Can we really do that? But But this other way, I feel completely comfortable with. So.
So Jen just brought to me the state statute, and we didn't incorporate fees because we weren't charging fees at that time. Jen just showed me paragraph 102, which is not in here. And it does say that we can require a deposit and we can charge back our fee. We haven't traditionally put the legal, our law firm is basically providing the legal department that legal to outside when you stop to think about it. And quite frankly, I think it's something we may want to consider in the future, charging back to recoup fees of legal reviews for outside reviews. We do have a mechanism set up to start tracking that, to provide that invoice in hours, but we just traditionally have not done that. And in these times, this requires a lot that we haven't. But as to the vacate fee, I understand Dave's concern. Dave is concerned that it's not spelled out in the state statute that you can charge a fee for that partial vacate. Dave is concerned, is that what you're saying? He's concerned about that, which I'm not. And if it gets challenged, then we find out.
I don't know.
Right. So I suspect we'd be the first, and there would probably be a test case,
Yeah,
right?
and
then we don't,
I'll be candid with you, I'm legally comfortable. I'm very familiar with the Constitution and all of the powers that the county does have, even though I know that we're reminded constantly of home rule versus the state statute.
Right. You
do have authority within that statute to promulgate regulations for the public's interest in the health, safety, and welfare. And a fee, it does, I think the state statute is broad enough to charge a fee. It does, as to the vacating process, so I don't feel hindered by that. I would suggest that that fee is earmarked for the purchase of future right-of-ways. That way you're establishing a fund, into the future.
Mr. Barrett, are you on board with the fees for people's work?
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Very much so. Yeah, otherwise you have a set amount, which is trying to pay for all these different things. Loses.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And
So I'll draft something with some options from other communities, what they've charged, kind of give the flavor of what Wyoming, what we would be seeing per hour. For our legal fees, I think we are at $38 an hour, the law fee, just so you know. So we're not that high.
Reasonable.
So we're not that high, just so you know. So we're not talking what a law firm would charge. It's very reduced rate. Okay. So once we get past the fees and you're comfortable with charging for the partial vacate of a right of way too.
But like you'd be interested to see what other counties do.
Okay.
The fees of everybody's time, I'm totally comfortable with that. I think that
They
that's
are not
wrong.
charging. Partial vacate, not charging.
How about other states?
Other states, yes.
Yeah, they are.
Yes. But they have also, and this is where I do need to do a legal
Yeah.
analysis for you. Of the states that are charging, is it in their state statute or is it silent? And I would like to take an opportunity to look at that, kind of dig deeper to see that. And I think this is worthy of future conversation of legislature of your county commissioners to revise, if need be, too. So I can further research that to give you before we go down that path.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so once it comes through the system, I think another item that kind of I noticed was an outside observation is we got into many options and it got a little confusing. Option A, 1A, 2B, and we've had this happen on another occasion or several other occasions. So the question becomes is when you keep getting into more options, that's more time, more investment of your staff and hours than just a straight vacation. So I think there needs to be some process if they amend their application to start over, if that's declined. Maybe we start over the process and then coming up with new, because when you had so many options on the table, it became a little bit unclear. And I don't know, we don't do that in this community, where we send you back to revise your application that I'm aware of. We amend it, but we don't start the process over. And I just kind of wanted to get a flavor in general. I mean, right now, we don't do that, right?
What do you mean? I guess like an example, so like a land use change or something,
Yeah.
somebody changes their application. Well, typically in our office, once we get an application, we make sure that we have everything, but there's not a whole lot of change after that. Like if somebody asks for small residential and we get into the process and go to planning and zoning and they're like, well, actually we want to do rural residential, that might be better. We would send it back to the beginning of the process and start over.
Or do they amend their application?
Well, yeah, they would amend their application, but with the process starts over though too.
Right, and so we, right, and I think,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm throwing out to you, do we do that here? Because what's happening is you got up here negotiating around the diet instead of allowing that to go back and be vetted by your viewer through a separate report, separate independent investigation. And I thought that became a little messy and also adversarial. And it may still be adversarial, but I think that leaks out a lot of that in the public and kind of, not that I'm fighting for the public, takes a lot of that out and have it behind the scenes. Because ultimately, if Jennifer and Alan and I and others were talking behind the scenes, we were able to communicate, well, you do this, well, you do that, and there was all this consensus. But when it comes in here, sometimes it becomes a little bit more contentious because we're in the bubble, so to speak, of prospering. So that's why I think it's best to come through with their one view. If you don't like it or it's not voted down, then they can go back and start the process over with your comments.
David?
Yeah, I would just support exactly what she's saying there, because I think it is messy. I think when somebody files this and gets to that point, that's what we're gonna look at. We're either gonna approve it or deny it, at that point. That's my opinion. So maybe with this process to maybe be a little more prepared, we put in there, instead of just starting with a filing a petition, we add like a pre-application type thing so they can sit down with the GIS person or whatever to look at the property and make sure that we have kind of things squared away a little bit better. And so that when it comes forward, which you can't foresee every issue or every complaint, but at the same time, if we start modifying something that's been presented to us, and has been accepted by the clerk, then I think that's a little problematic.
Because what you're approving is far from what was applied and petitioned to the court and properly noticed. So there was a lot that was moving on that was becoming uncomfortable as we were moving through the process. And using it was.
So I think this started up two administrations and two different ideas of what vacation looks like. So yeah, I feel fairly comfortable in being able to tell people what I think a vacation should be. Now, that's just my perspective, right? Be the minimum mistake. I don't believe in doubling the size of a person's lot because it's built in the street, right? I think that is an unreal expectation of what happens. So if we started there, that would be fine with me, but I don't, I don't have those authorities in my opinion. So.
Well, and how did it come to be that in this particular past case, the owner of the property didn't know that this structure had been built on the planet?
Yeah, because there was a pin, that you do walk the pins, but not everybody does this. And I will tell you, that pre-application process, that's kind of what Alan was doing, but didn't have an application, sitting down with the landowner and applicant. But I think formalizing that makes it more to have that dialogue. And one of them would be, did you check the pins? And I think that's in the viewer's report even on page, if I recall, I do recall seeing some of this. Yeah. Adjoining properties, what the viewer's report will address on Roman numeral 3A2, it gets into some of those. And we didn't say pinning, but that's what they're getting at. And if you are looking at that, then that tells us from the get-go what we're dealing with. It also allows us to know about the adjoining landowners, where that, is going. And I think just, this is all hindsight, of course, but I think that may be something we want to make sure that we're having that dialogue.
I like your movement of back at that. So stand up for however we want to do it. So we're all talking just one resolution instead of subpart A, B, and C. But I mean, that was good to know, right? We figured this called us to do this. And
and I thought it turned out better this time than it did before by labeling it A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3, because we didn't do that in the first time we did it with the one that did not. And that resulted in, if this ever went up on a court hearing, I don't even know how we would have been able to argue it, to follow which was option 1, which was option 2. We just really need to get it firmed up.
And direction to the new GIS person.
Right. So we've discussed expenses of the road. We've gotten through the appeal process. I think pretty much the only thing we haven't done, which I don't want to change, is when there's damages to adjourning and when there's claims filed. We haven't had that process occur. There is an expense that we have to get 3 appraisers when that occurs. And again, we need to include in our fees when that happens, that we're collecting that fee in advance, so that the applicant's paying for that and not us. And we just haven't gotten to that. Hopefully we'll never get there. So I'll add that to the fees. So we'll have right up front what the fees are total that we would be collecting. Other than that, you have the ability, so I'm going to tell you to also vacate. When you want to vacate, I know that you, in the past, I've seen where it just needed. You can't do that. You have to go through this process. It says it for the Board of Commissioners. And if it's on page 1, if you believe it's in the public interest, the county shall approve the resolution and they can vacate. So it can be an individual or you. It's paragraph 1, Roman numeral 1A2. And you have a disinterested viewer. So you can ask to vacate it right away. Is there a fee for you? How does that look when the government does it? And so I think I need to look to other states and jurisdictions, how that looks. I know there's a process, but you don't want that you're charging for an individual different than us as a board, even though we are a government, but we need to look at that as well. I don't think we've done that. I just see these, we just continue right away, but we vacated roads. I can tell you when I first took office, I know we did a few that were emergency management issues, if I recall. And we just, I can't remember.
Sure, Vera, it's like you have a question.
Yeah, you just mentioned, forest times, deadlines and all. Hey, but I just wondered if you want to get a little bit more specific just here today.
Okay.
Because, we're charging a lot, so if I were a petitioner, I would want to have some information to see when I can expect the viewers report to be done or something like that, just to give a little bit more idea, because I know there's some frustration, even though I didn't think people ask petitions, it's taking forever, but they're not supposed to us. But can we sort of recently establish some deadlines? Periods of time that it would take for this to be completed, so that just have an idea that This may be 4 months.
And when they have real estate closings, like we had in this case, there needs to be some ability to have an understanding how long this process will take for a closing. So, we could put a deadline down here. I will tell you with Alan, I thought he was rather quick in getting them back. But I don't know the workload of the new GIS and what that would entail. I'd say ultimately no later than 45 days. I'm just assuming the worst of what could happen in our community that would pull that GIS, and unfortunately a fire is coming to mind. I think GIS is used for roads and maps. They get pulled on that address. I don't know if they're doing it. I just don't know what the demands would be. Election could be going on at that time. So hence that has priority. So with that 40, so
But could that
45 days.
be, can be, that
Right.
deadline, statement, something could be, as emergency,
Okay.
election, whatever, all these things.
Okay.
circumstances that you just did.
Okay. Okay. So I would put 45 days now.
For the viewers report only.
And then yours comes on right away. So yours is set by set.
Yeah.
It's just that viewers report strategy.
Yeah.
Other than that, is there anything else that you observed that you felt needed to be included? How about the hearing and how it occurred, the layout? Do you want more of a, it's public comments? Is there a way you want to change that process, or just let it be like you do everything else? They come up to give their, hear from the applicant. I think it's important. For their representative, we put that in.
I don't know that solve the, not many people read the book, that many people read the book, they use it as far as notifying people, trying to make the county site a little bit more of a resource. But I think a lot of this goes by without people knowing, and I don't know how to make it.
Well, I think publishing on your website is always a good start. But in communities such as Centennial, everyone goes to that post office. They do read that board out there. So there, I think in Centennial, when we're aware of it, or Rock River, we should be more getting those posted on those individual boards. Everybody reads that. And then they also have in these remote areas, if you're not aware, they have social media newsletters. You can also put them in their newsletters too, and it's free to do that. So I think just being a little more creative, we can put that in here that we tried. What I'm worried is if we fail, does that then kick in? But I think we should make those attempts in general, and I know in those communities, Centennial, they live for the library and the post office. That's their social hub. Yeah. And when he died, yeah. And then he died, and then that was the end of the town crier out there. But there is a breakdown lately, I have noticed. I know about it because I have property out there, so I know the inner kind of workings out there. But there's social groups, there's a male and female social groups, they're very active, and that's how they tie the community. Rock River has similar social circles, if you will. But the post office and library and government are critical to them. So if we could do more of that, I think that would help. Do you believe there should be a sign like under advisement of being considered posted?
On the website or?
No, out there like you do with planning, like this development is being considered. We can always be more than what the statute says. But putting a sign up puts everybody on notice that something's about to happen with that right away.
That's probably a pretty good idea.
Well, I think the more you put out there, the possibilities of hearing the more we're going to do down, down the line, somebody comes in, well, I have no idea what's going to happen.
Well, and we should be for potential utilities, we do that. And, this is something the viewer report, but I think we should be notifying utilities as a notice requirement so that if they have utilities or easements underlying, like there's an easement track, we should be notifying. If there's none, we still telling utilities so that they're aware of it. So I can add that in as well. When you go through the viewer's report, that's where I'm getting traffic study. That's what they're going out to look at and maintenance of that road. So if you start vacating it, who's going to maintain that land? I think that we need to be putting in our resolution that you will be maintaining it too. And I noticed that that's not in it. We show that they own it, we pass it to them, but we need to make sure that we're putting, you're maintaining this, because I don't think they understand that. My observation out there. That's it. That's all I have.
Just knowing what I've seen, yes. If a property is in the middle of the road. Yeah, right. Keep that road at that house. What then? Like,
Well, then we need to
Yeah.
start filing
Right.
actions against individuals. I know Ms. Powell indicated that we have no recourse. I don't believe in that. We maintain those right of ways. If we exercise that, but the right of way has been
Yeah.
designated to the county. So with that said, we would file legal action. I think you're going to see in the next couple of weeks, we have lawsuits coming forward, taking action enforcement of nuisances that we'll be bringing in front of you. We just need to get a little bit more assertive. I think in the county, we've just been able to talk to our neighbors and to get things accomplished, but there's always maybe 5 people that it doesn't happen, and then we have to do this. So we need to start, I don't want to become litigious, but at the same time, there comes a point where you've got to start pushing these if we're unable to negotiate.
There's space for that in the preamble or something for the vacation where, there are times that you property out. That's just the way it is. So the people are on board. I don't know that previous applicants have understood that it's not a right to them. A privilege if something afforded to them. That did not happen. Right? So I think that is right. Set up those documents off on the right. We just might not be able to do this for you. Actually, might end up having to look around. Correct. So.
I have confidence in our processes internally, that I feel comfortable that there are many opportunities when there is a nuisance to resolve it. If anything, we've been real low priority because Dave's office is a high priority in trying to get them in compliance, but that enforcement piece when you come behind it and they won't comply and now you need to file an action, the time has come now to start moving in that direction. It's just unfortunate. It just is hit at the same time, all of these projects. But one, like I said, is coming on your agenda, that's got resolved. So, I mean, maybe that tells me we just need to sit down with that person and start getting brainstorming solutions for compliance. But you have people who are not complying, never have complied. There's a lot of non-compliance. I see it in the city. I see it in the county. And we are complaint driven because we don't have the funding to be more proactive, which is the ultimate way. So people feel that it's reasonably being enforced instead of when someone complains. But we do have a lot of issues in that regard. Not just the ones you've been aware of, there are aware.
Bear, anything more on this?
I like it. So my understanding is if I'm a petitioner, I'm going to get this so that I know what my steps are, where I'm going to.
I'm going to draft you regulations because this was more just, there's a difference between the protocols and the regulations. So I'm going to draft you regulations, have them reviewed by staff, Rob and others to review it, Jen, of course, and others. And then from there, incorporating these processes, these protocols, but we need to get it more how to, and with the flow chart, have that come back to you for adoption and out to the not adoption, but for public comment. You have a 45 days public comment, come back and adopt it. Even if we make some substantive revisions, at least get it out, adopted, and then we'll come back and get the substantive pieces later. But that way you're getting a process out there so the public knows.
What if we get a petition prior to 45 days, could be on? Yeah, we go around that.
We'll just be doing the way we've been doing it. Cobbling it together.
Yeah, I can't remember if I read it here. I don't think I did. Whereas if we denied it, it took 2 years before they could.
Yeah.
Is that state statute? Or is that?
No, that's, where is that? Oh, I should know this. It's, the board can only, and that's what's going on with the state land board with this, this lawsuit. And so it's probably cited in that lawsuit that's coming forward. You can only, if you make a determination and it's not reconsidered like in Robert's Rules of Order, then that decision rests and it cannot be brought back under Robert's Rules of Order to be reconsidered to the next seating of the new board. And that's Robert's Rules of Order, and we do adopt that as process, and it's in state statute. So that is a concern when we come back, decline an option, that option's dead, meaning, and they come back with a new app, with a new option, that's fine.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So
okay,
that brings it
perfect.
right back. But that's why I'm not, I mean, you can't keep those options on the table.
Yep.
And that's what we've been doing.
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
We addressed that. Sugar, anything? Rob, do you have anything else for us?
No, I don't have anything. Actually, I wished I would have come to the office or commissioner's room, but it was all right. I don't have any questions though.
All right, thank you, Rob. Jackie or David or Taylor, Peggy, Jennifer? Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. It'd be nice to have a process that people know where it lives and how it goes. And then we can start talking with people who are doing GIS and keep track of your time, your office, keep track of this time. Jackie, you guys can track of your time, and then we'll have a process people know what they're getting charged for.
I would also recommend we start line iteming certain things that we're doing so that you have a better understanding of how much our budget is spending on these items, just like we're doing the unmitigated impacts with wind energy. That gives us a better comprehension of how many hours we because you wouldn't know, like, once the application starts and we have our timeline to start doing our 30-day renovation and everything. I don't know if the commissioners realize how much time that is in our office and the demands that it requires. And I think having a better understanding of the commissioners so we can start charging back some items to recoup things like they do in other districts.
Yep, I can't imagine we're getting more money from the state than in the near future, so we're gonna have to do this. Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be great for the commissioners to know, like, would we do something, what is some tasks you guys as departments, because I don't think we really know until it keep piling on, right? And that's why you guys are here on Saturday night, right? That's all right. So having us understand that.
Okay. We'll try to set up some process in my office at least to make that easier and how we can let you know, report back so you have an idea of how much time. I know Jen's been spending on certain departments because they have high needs, you know, that fluctuates. high needs, but I don't know if there's an understanding how much of our office, I know that we did do that for enterprise funds over in the city, when I worked there as a city attorney. And that way, like we knew, the attorney's office spent 80% of the time reviewing contracts. And who was the top department, because we were able to charge back, as you know, enterprise and road fund, different things, not roads, but different funds that were public utilities and public works. We were able to charge back the attorney's side to those enterprise funds to UP. So we were doing that at the city back in 2005. We were doing, and I think that was a pretty effective manner for part of an operation.
Thank you. We have to have a motion to close the work session. If anybody doesn't have anything else, that's 20. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the research.
Are you able to scan this and send it out? Just what you wanted. Or tonight or tomorrow or. We're getting used to it.
To our 1,370
Yeah.
pages of rail type stuff.
Yeah.
I just want to see it. Can I look?
Oh.
Has what?
The
Back
usual
or front?
suspects, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. No
Oh,
surprises.
I'm sure.
Emma. No.
I think
Okay. So I will. That's my next Indian meeting.
Fish Technology Day.
Dave, we're done. The commissioners are done. Thank you for your help.
Lily.
I said to.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye now.
I saw that. Thank you, Kayla.
We'll send it to Karen.
Or I can better do us.
And also just, I would like to give a plug. Karen did a fabulous job for us on this 10 minutes.
Oh, she did a good
Oh,
job.
I can't tell you how great she did for you on this.
Oh, yeah. So I just wanted you to know that it was remarkable. And to have the problem solved from a new lens, new perspective was remarkable. And just taking the page over this year and having to do those things. So that's great.
Jackie was unable to attend, obviously, on Friday, the discussion about GIS.
All right.
How did that go?
I thought it went really well.
Okay.
Yeah, Jake. Yeah, Jake was asking a lot of the questions were here. We were very open about our concern about the protocol and I think everybody did explain to Karen, you know, the need that it's not an 8 to 5 job. I think Jack probably gave her the best description, but when a fire's going, he needs that at 12 o'clock tonight. He expects to need her here or wherever to get those snaps ready because he has to have them
Oh,
out.
sorry, I'll go my stuff a little bit.
So I think she understood that. She understood